Welcome back. This is John Shent with Vista Ascent Solutions, and it's been a little bit since our last video. The main reason for that is that we've been really busy working on a new training program that we're going to be talking about towards the end of this video. So keep watching, and we'll have an option for you to save a little bit of money if you choose to use our services. So today we're going to be talking about the OAuth Toolkit, or the OTK, how to install, what the workflow is, and most importantly, how to test and make sure that everything is working correctly. The OAuth capability is something that is being used more and more heavily in web-based communications, as it provides a easy to trust access point and still gives you quite a bit of leverage and flexibility when it comes to actually protecting some of your APIs. As we've talked about in the past, API security is paramount to a lot of the ongoing and upcoming cybersecurity threats. And so using the OAuth Toolkit really sets you apart and gives you a little bit more access and security into maintaining your security presence. Thankfully, with Layer 7, there's an OAuth Toolkit available for download from the support.broadcom homepage. If you don't have a Broadcom login, you want to make sure that you've got something tied with your license. So your license file should have access or the ability to get onto the Broadcom support page. I have already downloaded that solution kit file, which we'll take a look at that in a second, but I wanted to refresh everyone. This is going to be primarily in the tasks section of the menu. So we're going to go to tasks, extensions and add-ons, and then manage solution kits. Now when we go into our solution kits, we see it's empty except for the AWS solution kit. We'll probably create another video on this. AWS Solution Kit is specifically for integrating or working with S3 buckets and Lambda functions, and we're using that to try to test out some new capabilities. So we're going to go in and we're just going to try to install a kit. So again, this requires that the solution kit or the SSKAR file, which you see down here, is available. And so we just happen to have this loaded up already. You would get something similar, and we'll talk about the versions towards the end of the video. The version number becomes very important, especially if you're running on an older version of the gateway or something that's maybe a little bit more custom. So for now, we know that my gateway version 11.1, is going to be compatible with the OAuth Solution Kit 4.6.2. So we will go attempt to install this. And so a lot of things are going to be happening. A lot of things are going to be behind the scenes. We will start by selecting, you see this menu here. I always start by selecting everything because there's a lot of things to select. And this is where your particular implementation or instantiation of the gateway becomes important. So if you are running a Layer 7 API portal, you're going to want to ensure that everything that is checked also has the portal name on here. If you're not running portal, you want to uncheck everything that says portal on it. So we are going to take out the internal portal, we are going to take out the shared portal resources, and we are going to take out the portal persistence layer. Now on the persistence layer, you see there are two different types of database solutions. There's either a Cassandra or a MySQL Oracle flavor. So these are the database versions that are accepted from Broadcom that can be used on the API gateway as a way to manage especially multi-node gateways. Because we are only running a MySQL database or an RDS database, we do not have use for any Cassandra. So when we're going through and unchecking things here, it is important to note you can always go in and recheck these later. There is not a, you don't have to uninstall everything in order to get everything back or to modify the configuration. So this still becomes a very flexible product. I just recommend not installing things that you don't need on your gateway. And so we hit next. And now here's where I was talking about where a lot of things are happening behind the scenes. So you'll see some screens flashing up. You'll see they were testing solution kits, we're testing databases. What's happening behind the scenes is the Layer 7 OAuth Toolkit is installing tables on the MySQL database that you've set up. So it's already tied into the Layer 7 gateway, making sure that all of your logs are there, making sure the assertions are coming in correctly. And again, this is going to be working on a multi-node cluster. And so it wants to make sure that everything is pushed to the database, but it does that in a transaction model. So it's going to attempt to do things and then test them, and attempt to do things and test them, so on and so forth, all the way through this very large amount of data that all has to happen. And it takes somewhere between 2 and 5 minutes, depending on your database connection, what the particular settings are of your database. If it's not using a lot of memory or network throughput, it might take a little bit longer, as well as the box that you've deployed the gateway on. If you are low on resources, this is also going to take a little bit longer. But what we'll see is we're about to get to the next step here. We can kind of look down and we're seeing we're at this shared OAuth resources, which was the last step. And here we go. So when we are installing the OTK, again, there's a lot of checks that are happening. Anyone who is familiar with the REST-based manager or the gateway migration utility will definitely have seen these actions in the past. These are very standard for any modifications or changes to the gateway database. And what we see here is there are two connections, an OAuth and an OAuth read-only. These are JDBC connections instead of folders, and we'll talk about the folders in a second. And they're trying to create new JDBC connections, and there are no resources. And so, if you have already created an OAuth or a connection, a JDBC connection to your OAuth table or to an OAuth table, you can use the one that's already existing. Because I have uninstalled and reinstalled this, we have this already. Normally what you would do is you would go and create a new JDBC connection. And we'll show that in just a second here. And we would then set that JDBC connection to these resources. Now I'm doing this by just double clicking and just making sure that's selected. And now you can see instead of red text and resolved of no, now we have clear text and resolved of yes. So it'll be just another minute or so, and I think we'll be pretty well completed at this point. These are the last final steps for installing the OAuth Toolkit. And so I'm going to make sure that we go talk about the JDBC connections because that becomes very important. We see we're getting some updates here. We're kind of finishing off those shared OAuth resources, which again was the last step in the workflow that we saw from that top-down list of checkboxes. So what this is also going to use is actually kind of an interesting facet of the gateway, in that it can act as its own web server. And so when we're installing OAuth Toolkit, or the OAuth Toolkit, what we're really installing is just a bunch of policies and a couple custom assertions that allow the gateway to do all of the OAuth 2.0 full OIDC capabilities that you would expect from any other OIDC provider. The nice part about this is typically that OIDC customization would be almost impossible. You would have to maybe talk to the product team, maybe go and get some fixes or some plugins that allow you to do custom things. So when we get into OAuth capabilities, we're talking about custom grant types, we're talking about maybe custom scopes, and the ability to create your own workflows. That is not possible in most OIDC providers or plugins, but that is extremely possible here because we have access to all of the assertions. And so now that we are just about done, we'll be able to go in, double check the JDBC connection that I've created, because I want to make sure that you all have the same ability to go in and create your OAuth Toolkit. But then we'll also go in and look into the policies that were created. We'll see Like we saw here, new folders, and we'll have new folders up here for working. So we should be just about done. We're finishing up the last final bit. We're making sure that all of these references are accurate, and here we go. So we will close out of that. Let's refresh this real quick just to see the new folder that comes in. We can see we now have an OTK folder. Before we explore that, let's go look at the JDBC connection, because I want to make sure that you all understand what's going on and what we did for that. So I created a new JDBC connection, and I'm not going to show the password or much more of this configuration, but you can see that we were using we called the connection OAuth. It was using the exact same SQL reference as our current RDS database, and then we're creating a new OTK underscore DB on top. So this can be something that you create by yourself. When we were in the configuration, you can go into manage and potentially create that from the workflow itself. I always recommend creating this JDBC connection object by itself. It gives you a little bit more flexibility. You have a little bit more capability to do things. You're not so under the gun on things. But other than that, make sure you're using the same username and password as your MySQL database if you're going to run it on the same database. You can run this as the same database as your, in this case, RDS or MySQL instance. This just would be added on as another database similar to SSG or Gateway, or however you define that when we first created the Gateway, when we first did that install. And then if you want to double check that all your connections are correct, you can hit the test button. This will hopefully say that your testing is passed, and we can continue to move along with our installation. Now we can go into our OTK database. So you see there are many, many options that came through. We also have some custom assertions that got created. You can see quite a few. None of these assertions were in here before. We just have a lot of new capabilities for the gateway. And so the one that I wanted to make sure we talked about was the DMZ, the authorization server, and the token server. This is where most of your work is going to come through. We can see we've got the standard authorize and consent flows. So you have the ability to perform your base authorization, your base login, your base consent. Everything's kind of right there for you. We do also have logouts and refresh tokens and pretty much everything else you could need, even a JWKS URI in the event that your clients need to validate tokens or kind of complete that OAuth 2.0 workflow. We also have a well-known config, so users can easily access your API spec for OAuth, and if we open that up, we can see some of the responses that would come back and kind of we can see how we're building out the OpenID specification. So we'll go into our OpenID config. All right, and you can see there's quite a bit done here. A lot of these custom assertions that got brought in as part of the OTK install. There are a lot of things to require SSL certification. We are going to talk about that in another video. There are ways to lock down a lot of the capabilities that you have on this OTK. Another thing I wanted to point out was the recommendation to restart your gateway cluster after you've done this installation. The main reason for that is there are still some server configurations that need to happen on the gateway appliance itself, or on the gateway distribution itself. And I highly recommend restarting the gateway once you've installed the OAuth Toolkit. We'll show what happens if you do not do that in just a second. So we've brought up the OAuth manager. you can find it within the policy manager itself. You can see we've got this folder. There is an OAuth manager that is in the OTK server internal tools folder. And then you'll see OAuth manager. And then you've got the configuration for the OAuth manager here. Now, the easy way to tell if you still need a gateway restart is if you do not see this screen, or if this shows up as HTML without a rendered properly, you're going to want to do a gateway restart. If you just see a bunch of text, it's going to be a gateway restart. And similarly with this next page, we'll show you what it looks like if you don't do a gateway restart. So I'm going to put in my admin credentials. In a future video, we're going to talk about how to make this PKI enabled, so you don't have to worry about using admin passwords or any other internal identity provider credentials in the future. Makes it a little bit more easy to log in. You don't have to worry about passwords or other things, just have to make sure your certificate is not invalid. So we'll put in our admin credential, and very quickly, you can see that we've got our home, our clients, and our tokens. So this is going to be where you manage all of your OAuth clients. And you can see here, we've got all of our clients. These are the default ones. So Broadcom puts in 4 of them to begin with. We'll look at why you would use each of these and specifically how to test all of these. These are all primarily for testing resources on the various testing platforms we have available to us. From here, you can go in, delete clients, which Broadcom does recommend once you've validated that the OTK is working correctly, or at the very least disable them. You also have the ability to go in and edit various parts of the clients. I don't want to scroll down too far because then it shows user IDs and secrets and things like that. So we're going to just keep it very high level. And then list keys will actually give you all of the confidential information that could be part of this client. So this is the other section here. I'm not going to go over this, but you do have the ability to edit things in here just like you would with the normal edit. This just gives you a little more admin capability. You do also have the ability to search things, but since everything's on one page, we're just going to leave the searching by the wayside. You also have the ability to see tokens, but since we've just installed this, we don't have any tokens yet. So again, if the OAuth Toolkit is not installed or gateway reset has not been performed, you will see this internal server error on the OAuth v2 client endpoint. So when you talked earlier about testing, now we've done a gateway reset, we've talked about testing and how Broadcom set up a couple clients for us to test with. This page gives you that ability. Again, it's highly recommended that once you have validated the endpoints are working correctly, or that the OAuth Toolkit is installed correctly, that you disable these endpoints. Do not delete them, because if you're ever going to do any upgrades or modifications, you're going to want to leave these in place or have the ability to come back and do regression testing. So each kind of flavor of the OAuth Toolkit or OAuth 2.0 is available for you here. You have the ability to do implicit grant types. Basic client profile is going to be the most complete version of what you have access to. Implicit client profile is going to give you the same information, but will not have that entire OIDC flow like you would get with basic client profile. The nice part about this is this also gives you the OpenID spec, or the specification on what to make sure is in your OAuth requests. So when we're going to the authorized endpoints, when we're logging in, consenting, all of that, it is extremely important to make sure that you have all of the attributes listed as required within this specification. So once you've seen all of the required application or required options for you, you've got a little bit more information on how to proceed here. Now, if we go into implicit with OpenID Connect, you also see there will be several attributes that are required, but far fewer. So really, it just depends on your specific implementation. If you want the full OpenID Connect specification, I highly recommend a basic client profile. If you're doing less testing or less security rigor, implicit client profile is fine. If you go even further down, you could even specify password or client credentials in order to get you your OAuth applications or OAuth tokens. We could do a whole other section on OAuth, the various workflows, pros and cons of going password or client resources or basic client profile, the whole OIDC spec. We can certainly talk about that later. That's probably out of the scope for this specific video. So at this point, we have the OAuth Toolkit installed. We have some testing options for us to make sure that we're going to the right thing, that all of our accesses are enabled. And in a future video, we will talk about customizing this OIDC or this OTK solution kit so we can get a little bit more horsepower out of it. Again, this was John with Vista Ascent Solutions. Hope you have a great day. Vista Ascent Solutions is happy to announce we have personalized trainings available for organizations wishing to impart our expertise onto their engineering teams. Over the course of 3 days, we provide real-world application and use cases for distributed or on-site teams. This 3-day custom-tailored course gets your team up to speed with Layer 7 and its associated products. We go through basics that you'll find on our YouTube channel, as well as advanced security concepts and third-party integrations, ensuring a well-rounded and deeply technical team. Many organizations and different sized teams have used this course to jumpstart their teams and sharpen skills. With API security becoming more and more necessary to operate a successful organization, you can't afford to wait another day. Email us at info@vistaascentsolutions.com and reference this video for 15% off.